Here to talk more about the Asian carp infiltration, we have the Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, Tom Landwehr. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Commissioner, let's begin with this invasion of Asian carp. How close are they coming to Minnesota waterways?
Well, Asian carp have been approaching Minnesota for a long time. In fact, we have documented fish in the Mississippi River for a decade now. It's important to note that there are 4 species of Asian carp. We're concerned about 3 of them: the silver carp, the black carp, and the bighead carp. The silver carp and the bighead carp have been documented in the Mississippi River close to Minnesota. And so we're very concerned about that. The most recent developments are that we found a bighead carp, a commercial fisherman caught a bighead carp at the mouth of the St. Croix River near Prescott earlier this summer. And we initiated some testing called environmental DNA or eDNA testing in the St. Croix River and in the Mississippi River in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Had a number of positive tests in the St. Croix River all the way up to St. Croix Falls for silver carp. Silver carp are the one that you see jumping in the video clips. It's very alarming for recreational boaters. And 44% of our samples tested positive for silver carp. So the information suggests that we have some presence of fish. The eDNA testing won't tell us how many, won't tell us how severe it is, but it suggests that there are silver carp in the St. Croix River. We followed that testing up with netting and hired commercial netters who would do this for a living to tell us what they would find. They came up with no additional samples. So the good news is we don't believe there's a big population of any of these carp right now in the Mississippi or St. Croix rivers. But the bad news is there is some evidence that they're here. We know that they're further downstream. They will work their way upstream. We have a window of opportunity perhaps to do what we can to deter them.
And using that window of opportunity, are there any effective means known to work at this time that can be employed in Minnesota?
The only 100% effective way to stop Asian carp from moving upstream is a physical barrier that provides at least 10 feet or more of drop. They can jump, you've seen the videos, they can jump 4, 5, 6 feet high, but they can't jump 10 feet high, they can't jump 20 feet high. If we could put a physical barrier in place that provides that amount of elevation, that will be a complete barrier. Unfortunately, the number of opportunities for that type of a barrier in Minnesota on the St. Croix or the Mississippi are very limited. In the St. Croix, we have a natural barrier at St. Croix Falls, which provides that. In the Mississippi, we have a natural barrier that provides that at St. Anthony Falls. But of course, at St. Anthony Falls, we have put in a lock and dam system that helps bridge that divide. So right now, we don't have physical barriers that do that in the places we want them. We're looking at some options. We will be improving the Coon Rapids Dam via some bonding money the legislature gave us last session that will be a mostly effective barrier at Coon Rapids. And we're looking at a sonic and bubbler barrier at the mouth of St. Croix River in Prescott that can help deter Asian carp migration, but it won't stop them completely. So we had a meeting earlier this week, as you know, with several agency heads, federal agency heads, and the congressional delegation to talk about one preferred option, which is to make the St. Anthony Falls Dam a more effective barrier for Asian carp. And that's one of the things we see in the short term as being one of our more viable solutions to keep fish from moving up the river.
And the state is asking Congress permission to close some locks and dams. And so if this happens, who will be affected, both geographically and economically?
Well, the Corps of Engineers runs this large lock and dam system that runs from Minnesota to Missouri, and it is intended to allow for boat traffic, both recreational and commercial, to go up the river where ordinarily they would be stopped by a falls or some other navigational obstacle. In the Twin Cities area, there are 2 locks and dams north of Hastings. One is the Ford Dam. People know there's a Ford Dam in St. Paul. The other is St. Anthony Falls Dam, downtown Minneapolis. Those are both managed by the Corps of Engineers. Both are used for facilitating boat traffic up and down the river. It requires essentially an act of Congress to close those dams for any purpose, any emergency purpose. And right now the Corps of Engineers does not have that authority. So you're correct. We're going to go to Congress and ask them for that authority. If they in fact did close the lock and dam to avoid allowing the migration of fish, The impact will be that there are there is some barge traffic that goes through those locks and dams. It's very limited. It doesn't go much above the St. Anthony Falls lock into Minneapolis, but there's recreational boating as well. You know, pleasure boating. There's some commercial sightseeing boats that go up and down through there. Obviously, if you close that lock for some period of time, that lock and dam for some period of time, neither the commercial traffic nor the recreational traffic can move through there until we can perhaps retrofit the lock and dam to make it an effective barrier, but still allow some passage.
So, Commissioner, how much is the DNR willing to spend on this issue, both in time and in resources?
Well, this is a really important issue for the Department of Natural Resources. We are the land of 10,000 lakes, and if Asian carp get into our river systems, they are impossible to get out. Our best defense is to keep them from getting there in the first place. Of course, all of our authority, all of our funding comes from the legislature. So the real question is, what is the state of Minnesota willing to spend on this challenge? And we will be we did get some funding in the last session for aquatic invasive species from the legislature. We'll be going back with additional requests for funding for that sonic bubble barrier I mentioned, as well as perhaps some additional authorities. Right now, we're going to do everything we can within our authority and within the dollars we've got to prevent the migration of Asian carp. But more importantly, or perhaps equally importantly, we're going to our federal partners, because this truly is a federal issue as well as a state issue. These critters are crossing multiple state jurisdictions. The Corps of Engineers, as the administrator of the lock and dam system, is a key partner in this, and so we need to be in lockstep with the federal agencies, with the state of Wisconsin, other states, and our own legislative delegation.
Okay, Commissioner, for my last question, I'd like to switch gears. The last time you were on this program, it was before we knew whether or not there would be a state government shutdown. Now that everything is back and fully operational, have you been able to assess the impacts to your department of this shutdown?
We're still pulling the numbers together. We obviously lost revenue. You know, we had fewer people camping in parks, we had fewer people buying fishing licenses, but some of that loss is offset by we didn't have people working, so we weren't paying them. Some of the people who didn't buy a fishing license may buy it now, even if they weren't able to use it in July. So it'll take a while to get those numbers, because we compile by quarterly process. So it'll take a while to come up with the specific cost to the state. But during the shutdown, we were losing $1.2 million a week in license revenue and $1 million a week in park revenue. So the total loss of revenue is about $6 million. We don't know what the savings were, and that's what we're going to be calculating, but that will be, that's the range of our total impact.
Okay, we are out of time, unfortunately, but Commissioner, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Well, again, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.